Here's an Evox 25G that we did a build on. I had one of my employees help me with the anti-surge. We call this a T51r because of the design that we did here. It's not really the typical way that you do a T51r, but it made more sense to just use the material that was already here and then just recreate what a T51r looks like on the inside here. I'll show you a quick machining job to kind of give you an idea how the compressor housing was machined. Here's the anti-surge groove that I cut with the lathe.
So what, we turn about 8,000 on the then only do about 3. Otherwise, we got that off. That's what we are. We turned going like that, like 10,000 on the and all that. So we had plenty of deals, so they broke. They grabbed another one, in there, we have a 6 still. I'm only going down about 10,000 for Revolution too. I'm not a kid risk at all.
Almost. This compressor wheel is 60.5 millimeter by 78 millimeter. The turbine wheel is 58.8. You want the compressor and the turbine to be about the same size. If the compressor wheel is bigger than the turbine, sometimes it can overflow what the turbine can release on the exhaust side, which makes it pointless to have a bigger compressor wheel than the turbine in some cases. Now I'll flip it over and show you the other side. The turbine wheel is 58.8 by 67.2. It's a td06h 9 blade. This turbine housing, it has to be an aftermarket housing that's casted to be able to have that turbine wheel fit in there. Otherwise, the OEM turbine housings can only be machined to TD06 at the largest, which is 55 millimeter. If you try and machine an OEM turbine housing to this 58.8 millimeter turbine, it will cut a hole through the top here. So these recasted housings are much thicker in this area so that it can go to a bigger turbine wheel. This is twin scroll, just like the factory setup. I also TIG welded this, so you don't have to worry about that coming off. That is a common issue for aftermarket housings if you're not careful. If you don't weld the bushing or I guess the spacer there to the flap, they can fall off. So just make sure that that is secure if you're doing your own build. That's the whole build. This turbo build, we don't really do that often. If you're wanting us to do it, you can always send us an email at turbolabamerica@gmail.com. And horsepower wise, this turbo, it's good for over 600 horsepower. It's good for between 600 to 650. It really just depends on how you set the car up. I don't think you can make more than 650 horsepower with this turbo. If you want to make more than 650, I would recommend going T3 or T4. I would prefer T3. We have a lot of good options for the T3 turbos up to 1,000 horsepower. We usually don't build anything bigger than that. Right here there's a flange with the elbow that bolts right on here. I cut this part down some. I could have left it up the same height as this, but I cut that down because I wasn't really sure on the elbow size that he was going to use, because if the elbow would reach out to the point of this other inlet here, the anti-surge part, then it may completely block off the anti-surge, which would make everything I done here pointless. But I cut it back so that way, just in case the inlet does cover up that area, then there's room for the anti-surge to be functional.